I should explain to you the historical context of how Quebec comes to be so important in the defeat of the free trade area of the Americas in 2005 in Buenos Aires, or Mar del Plata, and in the building of a unified anti-imperialist movement, bringing together social movements of the South with those of the North. Now, the historical context is Quebec 2001, the third summit of the presidents of the Americas, supposedly, but it excluded the president of Cuba, as it is trying to do again in the sixth summit of the presidents of the Americas in Cartagena, soon to occur in Colombia. Well, more than 60,000 representatives and activists in social movements came to Quebec City in 2001, not just to protest the exclusion of Cuba, but to protest the plan of the meeting to consolidate the empire in Latin America behind the free trade agreement of the Americas. And that was the first severe blow given by the social movements. In this case, the majority were from the North. We had a lot from Mexico and the South and Cuba and so on, but the majority of the demonstrators being tear gassed in the streets of Quebec City were from Quebec and from Canada and the United States. And that was, in a sense, the beginning of what we came to organize and launch. By we, I mean the members of the collective sponsoring tonight's event, Collectif Appui de la CELAC, or Colectivo de Apoyo para la CELAC, no? We launched a campaign called Quebec 2001, 10 years later. We had tremendous help from activists present in the room, people from Radio Centre-Ville, who we have Teres from Radio Centre-Ville here, we have Carmen Concha and other people from Chile and the Chilean Association here. We had the consul at the time from Venezuela, Lesbio Morales, playing a very pivotal role in helping us get the ball rolling. And that was over 2 years ago. And we formed a citizens committee that included Noam Chomsky and Naomi Klein and myself and several others from the Americas, but also a few from Europe as well, and Latin America. And we formed this citizens committee to organize a reinvigoration of Quebec 2001 at a new stage 10 years later, to unify the social movements of the South with those of the North. Now, obviously, this was a crazy dream because, you know, it's the context of the great economic crisis and the increased repression of social movements worldwide, led by the United States and its repressive apparatuses, wars being launched in the Middle East, threats against Iran, and we're pleased to have with us a representative of the Iranian Solidarity Movement, Ahmad. Thank you for coming. This is a very international movement, and we've reached out our reach to even beyond our dream. Our dream actually began to fulfill itself, so that in August of 2011, with the cooperation of the NGO Alternatif, we jointly sponsored a 3-day weekend. Part of the name of it was Quebec 2001, 10 years later. We were right. And over 300 activists from different social movements, including from as far away as the movement of the Indignados in Spain, or the representatives of the revolutionary changes in Tunisia and North Africa. We brought all these people together and passed a resolution unanimously to send to the birth of CELAC in December in Caracas a delegation representing the motion that we passed. The motion, I have copies of it here. And by the way, I also have copies of, must be in that bag there, of Changement d'époque. Only one copy in French, but Cambio de Época, various copies in Spanish, which was almost our manifesto for August of 2011. And we passed a resolution that said we'll send a delegation to Caracas. At that time, we called it Québec en el Sur, but that soon got changed to Collectif Appui de la CELAC. And we'll send a delegation to Rio de Janeiro in June 2012, which we're now organizing, if any of you are interested in joining that delegation, for the counter summit by the social movements to the UN-sponsored summit of Rio de Janeiro, Rio 20 ans plus, 20 years later, the biodiversity agreement, so-called, of 20 years ago. So we're involved in that. And then the resolution passed in August also said we must go to Mar del Plata in 2015 for the 10th anniversary of the defeat of the free trade area of the Americas. Now, just as the Battle of Seattle in 1999 and the Battle of Quebec in 2001 began to formulate new approaches to politics, so the Occupons Montréal, Occupons Toronto, and the Occupons movement, Occupy Wall Street and so on, of the last year have triggered a new politics of, and a new energy, a reinvigoration of the very social movements we were trying to reinvigorate a year earlier in 2011, August. Now these new movements we're reaching out to. So since we couldn't afford, we were already in debt from having organized the flights of people from Mexico and Spain and other parts of the Americas to the meetings in August of 2011. Later we'll pass the hat and maybe you can make a donation to help us pay the debt. We sent only one representative, it turns out, to Caracas, and that was me. Okay? But the good news is that there were many, many interviews that I was able to conduct. You only saw one, and that was December 15 on Telesur. But there were several others in Venezuela on national television, and again for Telesur, that circulated widely throughout Latin America. And in those interviews, I was able to communicate the sense of hope and increased vigor that was coming out of this crazy dream that suddenly was gaining some strength, especially, I think, with the Occupy movement. So it's no coincidence that tonight we're sponsoring an event in solidarity, for one thing, with Café L'Artère, because they're offering us a space free, in solidarity with the other organizations we're sponsoring, we're calling for solidarity with, which is La Grève, the student strike. And thanks again, Café L'Artère, they're very much behind the strike, as you know, and Occupons Montréal.